That's about all I can tell you on that side of it there, but we'll have a look at the models now. And like I said, I had 2018, 2019, 20, and then the 22, so 4 in total. And, you know, if you're in the market and you want to buy one, I'll just give you an idea what I thought about them, and you could decide later on, you know, which way you'd like to go. And, you know, I'll probably tell you what I think what my pick was, and it depends on your budget. So to give you an idea before we get on to that, I had a good check on, I think there was 80 bikes available here in Australia at the moment, and they range from $4,000 for 2013 model right up to around about a 23 model for a little bit over 10. So that's the price range they fell into. And like all things, it depends on how many owners, condition, how many kilometres it's travelled, and more importantly, no damage to it. So that's something for you to look at. So we'll just have a quick look at those 4 models, and I'll just tell you what I thought about them. So let's swing back to 2018, and to kick off my CB500X adventure, I walked into the local Honda dealer and seen this bike here shown now on the floor. Now it had a ticketed price of $8,500. I looked at that and I thought, geez, that looks pretty big compared to the classic 500 singles I've been riding. And I thought it looked pretty good. Colour was nice. Everything about it was nice and neat. So I thought to myself, I might have a crack at one of these and get into one of these Honda CB500Xs, which is exactly what I did. Now, got out on the road, rode it around, and really enjoyed the experience of riding it. And I thought it had really good power for about 47 horsepower, and I think I clocked up about 1,000 kilometres in roughly 2.5 weeks on it, maybe close to 3. So this is where the sort of crap hit the fan, you could say. I walked back into the dealer again to tell him I'd like to book it in for the service about 3 weeks later. Looked on the floor and they've got a grey one on the floor, and I said to him, what's this, the optional colour too on it? No, he said, that's the new 2019 model. And I'm thinking to myself, bloody 2019 model, and there was no mention about that one. What a mistake I've made here, because it looked nice and slim and it wasn't quite as bulky as the 2018 model, and I think it was only around about $400 dearer. So, and had a huge amount of upgrades, and I'll go to the upgrades now. So, cut a long story short, this red one only lasted, I think, a couple of weeks after that, and I went back and bought that gunmetal grey metallic, shown now, and I ended up selling the red one privately. But I was pretty happy with the red one until I seen the new model sitting there, and I felt like I'd been done. Okay guys, so let's have a look at the improvements we made from the 18 model to the 19 model. So first off, they got rid of the overhanging beak from the 18 model, and they trimmed it up, and also trimmed up around the plastics on the side panels and around the tank area. So I thought to myself, that wasn't a bad move, because if you look at the previous model, it sort of overhung a bit. So the other thing is, the 18 model had 17-inch wheel at the front. Well, in this case, on the 19 version, they whipped up to a 19-inch front wheel. So that was pretty good. Gear indicator in the display, well, you know, I don't know what most people think about that, but I'm starting to like riding bikes now with gear indicator displays, and it was the first to have this one on it. So another big news for it too, they added a slip and assist clutch, which is really good if you're a new rider and you're moving along on the road a bit and you're up in the top gear and you try to come down through the lower gears on a little bit quicker than you should, and that can save you a rear wheel lockup. So that too was also a good thing. And then they had a slight increase in the suspension. They narrowed the seats so that it helps a little bit better if you're a stand-up rider on the dirt, and they also give it tapered handlebars. So you know, I think as far as that, you know, these are not bad ones. They increased the windscreen by an additional 20%. They made the motor more refined. So, you know, like overall, you know, they did that, hit the steering and give it a little bit different in the steering angle. So, and the big thing, what I find about it the most would be they put a dual outlet type of air on the exhaust. So when you're out there riding around and you're in the top gear and you back off and come back down through the gears and back off the throttle, you'll hear it burble and crackle and carry on. It sounds pretty good compared to the previous model, which doesn't sort of make the same one. So that's a rough indication what's the difference if you had a 18 lined up and then went straight away to the 19 version. Yeah, so overall the riding experience for the 2000 model was pretty good, and I could tell straight away that it was a more compact and easier bike to ride, I thought, than the 18 model. So the next time I had a hit further down the track was, I thought it was 2020, but it was actually 2021, right in the peak of COVID. And one day I just walked in that stream dealer, and they're sitting on the floor. It had only arrived the day before with the 2021 model white version, and it had the red trellis in the back part of the framework there. And I remember saying to the dealer there, "What's the story on this one?" And he said, "It's been pre-ordered by a girl and she'd been waiting 6 months to get it, and she's coming in to check it out this afternoon." And I said, "Oh yeah?" I said, "Oh well, why is that?" And he said, "Is she buying it or not?" He said, "Well, she wants to try the seat height first, see if it's suitable for her or if it's too big." So I said, "Fair enough. Let me know. Well, if something goes wrong and she can't buy it, I'll buy it off you." So that's exactly what happened. And the girl came in, checked it out, decided it was too tall for her. She decided to get something a little bit more compact. And he gave me a call back and said to me, "If you still want that bike, it's yours." So I actually bought that 2021 model, and the only thing is I really only bought it for the colour and the colour of the bike itself, the white, which really stood out outstanding. It really looked nice, and a bit of red paintwork on the trellis, because after riding it for a short period of time, it was no better in the fueling. It still did the same surging and carrying on in the fuel delivery like the 2019 model, and it was still fairly vibey in the bars too, especially when you got up around that 100. So that was the idea, of going to a 16-tooth front sprocket to sort of push those vibes further up into an area I wouldn't be travelling. So, and it helped, like I said earlier in this clip, it helped in that line there. So that was the 2021 model, the white one out of the way. But overall, the white one was a really pretty bike. So, I had no complaints about it. Like all these Hondas that were reliable all the time, you could run them, and no trouble with them whatsoever. So they were just good trouble-free bikes. So that cuts 21 out, so now we'll swing to the 2022. So in 2022, Honda brought out two nice colours for the 22 model. So one was Pearl Organic Green, and the other was Grand Prix Red. Now the Pearl Green was virtually impossible to get, and it was a highly sought after bike, and it was something like about a 6 months wait to get one of those. And even then you'd have to be making to score one, because, we were right in the midst of COVID and everything was pre-ordered. But I managed to get a Grand Prix Red. Now, I didn't really mind the Grand Prix Red. It was a really nice colour, and, you'll see photos of the bike come up now and a bit of a ride on it. And overall, it was a great experience with that bike. But the main thing is, with the 22 model, is these are the really keen upgrades I thought were put on the bike. And, if you're out there looking at the moment, not hard to pick the 22 model. For a start, they had a show of 41mm upside down forks, and they apparently sharpen the steering. And as far as that goes, the only drawback, and with these bikes are built to a budget, they were non-adjustable, so they were just fixed in that line there. And more importantly on that one, they also threw in a twin disc setup. So I really like that side of it, because if you look at these photos I've got coming up, I think it gives that more big bike feel to it, and it looked like you're really riding a big bike. And they sort of, when you see something with the front twin discs up front, it looks like they're there to do business. And more importantly, they were held on there by Nissan calipers, which, in my opinion, they work pretty good. Now, another mod to the bike was they also fooled around with the fuel injection and reprogrammed it, and the bike seemed to appear to have more low-end grunt. But more importantly than anything, and the most exciting thing I found on the 22 model, was the fact that they worked on the throttle. Now, if you look at back of 19 to 21, any of those bikes there, even in the new upgrades, they really had a jerky or not a smooth throttle on them. And, it used to be a pain in the tail when you're riding them and have to put up with sort of a horrible throttle on those bikes. But for 2022, with the reprogramming of the motor, they got in there and they fixed up that throttle response, and believe me, it had a really nice smooth throttle, and that was the first thing I noticed between the 21 model I had and to go into the 22. So as far as that goes, that side of it worked really well, and I think just to get a 22 model with that smooth throttle and get rid of that jerkiness was just, virtually a dream come through on one of these. And if you wanted the dream to even look better, if only they could have tamed the vibrations a bit in the bars, well, that would have really made it into a perfect bike. Now, the other thing worth mentioning, they also upgraded the LED headlight and made it a little bit more powerful, and naturally it's got LED taillight. But overall, they would be the main things. But if you ask me what I thought the draw card was to the 2022 model, it was definitely getting rid of that jerky throttle. Anyway, guys, after owning all 4 bikes, this is my verdict on those ones, and see what you think in that light. I headed over to bike sales, that's in Australia, and there were 72 used bikes for sale as of today, or when I checked. Now, I broke them up into categories, and naturally I had the 2018, 2019, 21 and 22. So prior to, say, 2013 to 2018, there were X amount of bikes for sale, and they ranged in price from $4,100 to nearly $7,500. Now, my thoughts would be, after, like I said, owning all 4 bikes, and I recall the first one pretty well, there was a huge difference to jump from that first model to the 2019 model. So I would think, unless you're on a very tight budget, there's no way I'd pay those exorbitant prices for those particular bikes, unless you're picking up one for $4,500 and you want a CB500X just to ride around. But to pay the ridiculous price of the other ones, up around $6,000 to $7,000, is really pushing your luck. And you are getting into the territory where the 2019 model is by far the better bike. So next up, we'll have a look at the main upgrades on these bikes, which I think are the first kick of the main upgrades from 2019 to 2021. So when I looked at those ones, they ranged from $7,500, one that had 20 Ks on it, to a 21 model for $7,900. So between the 19 and 21, there's not a great deal the difference separating them, $700, and just take your pick. So it wouldn't matter if you bought the 2019, 20 or 21, they're all the same, and it'd be just a matter of go for the best deal. Okay, now we'll go to the last but not least, the one I think is easily the best value bike out of all of them, and that's the 22 model onwards. There were a few of those for sale there, and more importantly, there was one really good one there in the organic green colour, and imagine that, he wanted 9k for it, and it had only done 400 kilometres. That is a really good deal compared to the overpriced other bikes I'd seen there for that. So if I was out there chasing the CB500X and I lived in Queensland, I'd be straight onto that bloke to try to get that one, because if he wants $9,000, you could probably go in there, take it away for $8,500, and you'd get the best value bike out of 72 bikes on bike sales. So it'd be as simple as that. You might think that I favour the 22 model, but in actual fact I do, because there's nothing better than when you're riding a bike if you've got a good throttle response, no jerky throttle and anything like that. It's annoying, And with that 22 model, you have got a really good throttle, good mid-range torque, and it's got everything going for it. So as it is now, if you're at the very end of the market, you're on a bit of a budget or a tight squeeze with $1, you might be able to squeeze somebody around that $4,000, $3,500 for an early model CB500X, and you'd be really happy with that deal too. But if you've got a bit of coin and you want to spend something, I'd go right through the range and go straight to a 2022 model. There's quite a few of them for sale, and that'd be the direction I'd go, because just add that front end with the twin discs on it, looks the part, and you've got all the other stuff going there for it, but especially that smooth throttle, and you don't have to go looking at fueling aids to see if you can sort it out, because first thing I noticed when I got on that red one was how smooth it was in that throttle, and it was just unreal that how bad they were before and how good it is on the 2022 model. So I hope you found this helpful. That's about the best I can give you on this one. If you enjoyed it, you might want to give it a thumbs up, you might want to subscribe to the channel. Choice is, as always, yours there. And more importantly, I hope if you're in the market to buy a Honda CB500X, you've got some benefit out of this, and it'll help you get out there and look. And apart from that, cheers for now.